We've been learning about the branches of our government, the three branches, and I just wanted to go over this with you again today because it was a little confusing in our social studies book because it focused mainly on the buildings that they worked in. But I think it's more important that you know the names of the branches. That is why I had you watch that video yesterday on the branches of government. So I'm going to again go over this with you before we move on to our next lesson. There are three branches in our government. The first branch is called the president, the executive branch. The official name is the executive branch, but in second grade, they just want you to know that it's the president. You can call it the president, okay? You don't have to say executive branch. You'll learn those terms when you get older. So in second grade, just focus on it being the president. And his job is to approve the laws and make sure the laws are being followed. Next, we have the Supreme Court. They make sure the laws are following the Constitution. They need to make sure they're fair for everybody because our Constitution says we have rights. So they look at the laws and make sure that it's following all of the rights that we have in the Constitution. And the third branch is Congress. Even though the official name is legislative, you need to know it as Congress. Okay, Congress, they make the laws. They're the ones who come up with what the laws should be depending on what the people in their states would like. Okay, on our test, we have a test coming up pretty soon. It's going to give you two of the branches. It'll either say Congress, President, or Supreme Court. It'll give you two of them. You have to figure out which third branch is missing from the list. So they're going to say, if it says Congress and President, what's the third branch? You have to know it's Supreme Court. If it says Supreme Court and President, what's the third branch? You're going to have to write down Congress. Okay, so make sure when we're studying for our test that we know the names of the three branches. You don't need to know where they work. You need to know the names of their branches. Congress, President, Supreme Court. Okay? All right. We've learned how our leaders work together to have a fair government for all. We are part of our government too. Every citizen, especially once you turn 18 years old, has a part. But we know not everyone can be a president or can be a Congress member or a judge. So how is everyone else being part of our government? We are part of our government by voting. Voting tells the leaders what we want for our country. So our next lesson we're going to be doing today is about how we vote, which makes our government what's called a democracy. Democracy means that it's a government that is by the people. That means it's the people who are making the decisions. So take out your social studies book. Open it to page 320. And we're going to read it together just like we do in class. So I'm going to get my book out. I have it on 320. I'm going to follow along with my following finger just like we do in class. I might be asking you questions as we're reading, just like I do in class. So make sure you're following. You're reading it, so your brain is seeing it. You're hearing me, so your brain is hearing it. You could even be reading it out loud with me as I'm going. Your brain is learning it in 3 different ways. It'll help you remember. All right, let's begin. Democracy. Democracy is government that comes from the people. In a democracy, people make choices about their leaders and their laws. They may do this by voting in an election. I'm going to move this up so we can see the rest of the page. There we go. In the United States, citizens may vote for a leader of their community or state. They may also vote for a few people from their state to go to Washington, D.C. Those people are members of Congress. In Congress, they vote to make laws for all citizens in the country. Look at examples of democracy in the United States. So here we're going to look at the picture of the whole thing. Now I got to move my camera so we can see all of it together because it's on 2 pages. Okay, democracy in action, and it's giving some different examples of democracy. Remember, democracy means that it comes from the people. So it means we are voting, we are making the decisions. We're telling our leaders what it is that we want. Okay, so it has an example of school. It says students vote on where to have their class picnic. So they're making a decision in school. Down here in your community, this city council votes on how much money to spend on city services. Then in your state, people hear a speech before they vote for governor. Okay, we know the president is the leader of the whole country. Did you know that governor is the leader of your state? You need to remember that. Who's the leader of a state? Governor. Do you know the leader of a city? That is mayor. So a mayor leads a city, governor leads a state, and the president leads the entire country. All right, here we have nation. That's another word for country. People vote for a new president of the United States. So, as you can see, the people are part of the democracy because they are voting. They vote in their city elections, their state elections, and their nation elections, their national elections. You are not 18 yet. You cannot vote in these 3, but you do voting in our classroom. So this is how our classroom can be a democracy when you vote. Okay, first question we're going to ask. Tell how democracy is part of what happens in your class or school. What sort of things have you voted on? Number 2, write about why voting is important in a democracy.